Well, hello again. You must be getting sick of me by now, but it's great to see you once again. And for those that enjoyed the session prior, I hope you enjoyed the advocacy session. It was an absolute pleasure to be a part of it. We did do a much longer chat than you were privy to see because of time constraints, but hopefully the extended, uncut version may hopefully be available on this platform. That would be great. I know we're providing access for 90 days, so that might be a place to put it if people want to see more, but it was a fantastic chat. And on this particular session, we are talking about leveling the playing field, okay? So for those that are new, I'm Orion Kelly. I'm your actually autistic MC, and I will be your host for this session. We'll be hearing from the General Manager of JobAccess, Daniel Valiente-Riedl, and I hope I've done okay in saying that. Daniel has over 15 years of experience working in the disability sector. During this time, he's worked in the areas of mental health, intellectual, developmental, acquired and physical disability. As the General Manager for JobAccess, Daniel manages a team delivering this award-winning service on behalf of the Australian Government. JobAccess is the national hub for workplace and employment information for people with disability, employers and service providers. It includes the employer engagement team, which helps larger employers build their disability confidence and competence and access the talents of people with disability. Now, before I do hand over to Daniel, I'd like to let everyone know that you can submit questions for Daniel. And in saying you can, I'm saying you must, or we will both look silly. So please, I want you to start typing questions into the Q&A pane. You just click on that Q&A pane. It's on the right side of your screen, I believe. Now, what you do is you put your question in there, and once it's approved by the moderators, you'll see it in the pane. And if you do see questions that aren't yours that you actually like, well, you can upvote them by clicking on the arrow beside it so we can get to as many questions as possible. So please get your questions through to Daniel on the Q&A pane throughout this chat. And the Q&A pane is not a chat panel, it's just a Q&A panel. Okay, so let's get going, my friend. Welcome and take it away, the man himself, Daniel Valiente-Riedl.
And thank you so much. Can you see now the presentation on your screen?
I can.
Fantastic. Well, good afternoon, and thank you to Autism CRC for inviting me to speak today. First, I would like to pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land. I'm in here today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. As we have people attending from multiple regions, I would like to also acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognize their continuing connection to land, waters, and culture, and also pay respect to elders past and present and emerging leaders. Again, Orion, thanks so much for making the effort of pronouncing my surname correctly. That was actually quite lovely. As Orion said, my name is Daniel Valiente-Riedl. I'm the General Manager of JobAccess. I've got to disclose the fact that I don't have an experience of living with disability. I was brought up, though, by an auntie, a great auntie that lived with chronic schizophrenia and heard voices continuously. Interestingly, we were part of a really close-knit community, and within that community, there wasn't fear about my auntie's condition. It was just part of the normal experience of being a human. And that brought me to believe that humans and workplaces are just part of the human experience. So workplace adjustments, or reasonable adjustments that they call sometimes, are essential elements to any inclusive workplaces. From making simple adjustments like flexible work hours to provide an accessible equipment, there are many ways in which small changes can have a big impact for people living with disabilities and working with disabilities, including the neurodiverse community. When speaking to people with disability about their employment goals, we hear time and time again that they don't want preferential treatment. Like any employee, they want to be considered for their talents, experience, and qualification, and the things that they bring to the role and the organization. Quite simply, they want a level playing field, and workplace adjustments are absolutely key to achieving this. So today we will discuss a range of topics related to workplace adjustments and modifications. and how they can help to achieve sustainable employment, sustainable programs for employees and employers with a disability. We will start by understanding workplace adjustments and look at examples that can help improve accessibility. We will talk about financial assistance available through the Australian Government Employment Assistance Fund. And lastly, we will look at a range of resources and support from the National Disability Recruitment Coordinator, or NDRC, to support employees in their journey to become disability confident. So let's get started. So for employers in Australia, disability inclusion is not just a good or nice thing to have, but it is essential to access a larger pool of skilled candidates. To put this into context, let's have a look at the current disability landscape. And I know that these numbers have been thrown around and many of you have heard it, but it's important to understand the depth of what it can be achieved with inclusion. 1 in 5 Australians live with a disability, and that's right, over 4 million Australians, that's around 18% of the population. And this number is only increasing with the aging population. More than 2.4 million Australians live with a mental health condition or physical health condition. Over 2 million Australians of working age have a disability. And it's also important to consider that most disability is invisible. In fact, 90% of disability, and consider also that here the rising number of people with mental health conditions, including anxiety and depression, and of course, autism. And 31% of the population have accessibility needs, but they don't consider themselves having a disability. Now, I would like to share a real story. This is something that it came to our attention a little while ago. So when Samantha Curtis first met Jack, he was 16. Jack's parents were asking Samantha if he could do work experience at a Capital Chemist in Charnwood in Canberra, where she had been the owner for 5.5 years. And if I can quote her, "Truth to be told, I was scared. I didn't want to ask the wrong questions or else use the wrong words. I didn't want to offend him or his parents by saying the wrong thing." And that's something that is typical to what we hear when dealing with disability employment. Jack has autism and is nonverbal. When his parents asked Samantha if he could do work experience, his school thought he wouldn't be capable. But Samantha decided to give him a chance, and it worked. Samantha says that having Jack on the team meant that she thought more about how she assigned tasks, not only for Jack, but for everyone. If I can quote Samantha again, it was a fascinating learning curve in regards to how I train staff. When you have someone who have to explain what a barcode is, it makes you think about how you can break things down for everyone. It meant that I put more time into finding out what people's strengths and weaknesses are and thinking about which tasks are suited to which people. For instance, Jack likes computers and is very meticulous. So Samantha taught him how to use the dispensary robot, a vending machine that dispenses around 800 different drugs and is used to fill 600 prescriptions that come through each day. And it is safe to say that Jack loves it. Jack, who came to Capital Chemist nonverbal, one day said to Samantha, "I packed the robot." So it's a wonderful story of self-determination. So what do we think that is holding employers back? And obviously that is a rhetorical question. A 2018 study by the Department of Social Service surveyed about 1,200 Australian businesses. And the findings were fascinating. 77% of Australian employers were open to hiring a person with a disability. However, only 35% of employers demonstrated a behavioral commitment to do so. And some of the commonly perceived barriers were 44% of open employers had concern about integrating a person with a disability into the workforce, and the lack of awareness and understanding of disability employment. In fact, 37% of employers see employing a person with a disability as a step into the unknown. And this is baffling given that 90% of disabilities are invisible. So the reality is you are already employing people with disabilities. And that's where JobAccess come in. And I'm very proud of leading this team. JobAccess is a national hub for disability employment for people with disabilities, employers, and service providers. It's funded by the Australian government, and it is a free service that exists to remove barriers to disability employment. We've got a wide range of services, which includes a dedicated advice service via phone and a website. We operate a national call center. The number is on your screens now, and is delivered by a team of frontline professionals who provide free, confidential, and expert advice. Our advisors are available to answer your questions on matters related to disability employment, or can direct you to other support services. JobAccess also has a comprehensive website, and I really encourage you to go and visit it at www.jobaccess.gov.au. And this contains information and advice on disability employment. We also coordinate workplace adjustments and modifications through the Employment Assistance Fund, or the EAF. Employers, employees with disability and disability employment services, mostly DES providers, can access funding through the EAF for adjustments in the workplace. And I will talk a little bit more on that shortly. We also have the National Disability Recruitment Coordinator, also known as the NDRC, which is the employer engagement service of JobAccess, which works with larger employers across Australia to increase their disability confidence. Other services that we provide include the Complaint Resolution and Referral Service, or CRRS, which aims to improve government-funded disability employment support services through a fair and impartial complaint resolution process. And the National Disability Abuse and Neglect Hotline, which is a vital reporting service available to anyone who suspect abuse and neglect of a person with a disability. So let's turn our attention to the concept of workplace adjustments, what they are and why they are so important in building a truly diverse and inclusive workplace. Some of you may know what workplace adjustments are. However, for the benefit of everyone participating in today's discussion, let me start by defining the term. Workplace adjustments or reasonable adjustments are any change, whether it is administrative, environmental, or procedural for that matter, that enables people with disability to have equitable employment opportunities and work effectively and comfortably. It is important to understand that not all people with disabilities will require workplace adjustments. Also, many a time employers assume that it will be expensive to make adjustments to the workplaces and offices. The fact is that the vast majority of workplace adjustments are low cost, and some changes, such as providing flexible work hours, involve no cost at all. And we all know that through COVID. Under the Disability Discrimination Act of 1992, if an employer is aware of an employee's disability, they must provide what is called reasonable adjustments to accommodate the need of the employee, unless adjustment would result in injustifiable hardship. The employer may also get help to cover these costs, making these reasonable adjustments through the Employment Assistance Fund. And as I said, I will talk a little bit more about that later. Making adjustments in the workplace is clear and wide range benefits to the business, and it can help increase the work performance of employees with a disability by providing the right tools to do the job, increase the retention of productive and committed staff who may acquire a disability over time during their employment. It can also increase staff capabilities, as some adjustments can enable employees to perform tasks that they weren't able to perform before the changes were put in place. Can also increase access to buildings and rooms by other people and customers, potentially broadening your customer base to include more people with disabilities. And it can become part of everyday practice for all employees. Integrating workplace adjustments into the business process rather than being an afterthought. Again, consider here the impact of COVID-19 and how many businesses moved to remote and flexible working arrangements for employees, improving access for all. Adjustments can be made in the physical environment, workplace practices or policies to help improve accessibility and inclusion. You can do changes to the physical environment. Physical adjustments refer to any changes made to structures, surrounds, or furniture and fitting within the workplace to remove barriers and improve the access of people with disabilities. This can include assistive technology or changes such as purchasing an ergonomic chair, a sit-stand desk, and the likes. You can also make changes to your recruitment processes. This can include making all recruitment materials available in accessible and alternative formats, such as position descriptions, application forms, and questionnaires. You can remove medical tests or aptitude tests that are unrelated to essential job requirements, or provide alternative format of assessment papers, for example, in audio, braille, or large print versions, and allow the candidate to present his or her answer using an alternative method, for example, verbally rather than in writing. You can also allow the candidates additional time to complete exams or selection tests, particularly individuals with dyslexia or with other learning difficulties. You can organize the interview in an accessible venue, or provide an interpreter, for example, for a candidate who communicates using sign language. Funding is available through the Employment Assistance Fund to organize an Auslan interpreter to attend an interview. You can also provide modifications through job design process. Employers can think of how to incorporate workplace adjustments to suit candidates and employees with a disability. This can include flexible working hours, job sharing. The job that is available needs to be worked on a full-time basis. Job carving, allocating some of the duties to or from another employee. And customized employment, job creation for people with more significant disabilities. And you can also adjust training and development. And this can include introducing a workplace barrier and mentor system, allowing external support workers from a specialist employment or disability services on site, if necessary. And that's for the orientation and learning assistant. You can also extend the training time or probation for workers with a cognitive impairment or learning disability. Or you can even arrange general or specific disability awareness training for co-workers, supervisors, and managers. If you want to learn more about workplace adjustments, a great place to start is the disability adjustments tools on the JobAccess website. It provides a detailed list of the type of disability, whether it's a physical, cognitive, blindness, deafness, and mental health. For each disability, it explains symptoms and outlines possible workplace adjustments and solutions. For example, one of the symptoms that is associated with cognitive disability relate to social perceptiveness and interaction. This may be seen in the workplace as difficulty in recognizing and responding to sarcasms or banter, as some people without social perceptiveness may take what is said as very literal. Another challenge may be how to interpret and respond to nonverbal communication or cues if the individual has poor visual perception of facial and body language. The tool outlines possible workplace solutions, including role play or show appropriate responses in different workplace situations, and allow the worker the opportunity to practice for themselves, providing appropriate feedback, appointing a mentor for the purpose to be effective. Recognize and reward behaviors that show improvement in social perceptiveness, such as simple well done for recognition. And a trained psychologist or counselor may be able to help also workers with the development of social perceptiveness, such as increasing understanding of body language. This tool also includes a link to the Independence Living Centre in Australia, at their website, where you can find when you can search for relevant products and suppliers as well. Now, at an organizational level, you may wish to consider the reasonable adjustment policy. The purpose of this policy is to ensure that HR teams are hiring managers following the principles of reasonable adjustments and enable all individuals to have an equal opportunity in the workplace. It increases the likelihood of retaining an existing employees who may acquire a disability, and facilitates the employment of skilled and talented candidates with a disability. A good policy will outline the principles and procedures of making reasonable adjustments in the workplace to meet the needs of current and potential staff with disability. The JobAccess website has several free resources, including a reasonable adjustment policy template, and a reasonable adjustment policy checklist for employers to refer and adapt their organizations. Now that we have an understanding of the workplace adjustments, let's take a look at how you can make it happen. So JobAccess operates a call center, a call service delivered by a team of frontline professionals who provide free, confidential, and expert advice. This team includes allied health professionals, specialists in the workplace, workplace adjustments and occupational therapy, psychologists, as well as those with experience in training and recruitment strategies. JobAccess works with the National Panel of Assessors to conduct free workplace assessments and advise modifications and support. This may be eligible for reimbursements through the Employment Assistance Fund, or EAF. So the Employment Assistance Fund is available to people with disability who are about to start a job or who are currently working and who help buy work-related modifications and services. And these may include adjustment to special equipment or for physical workplaces, modifications to work vehicles, information and communication devices, Auslan interpreting, specialist services for specific learning disorders and mental health conditions, disability awareness, deafness awareness, and mental health first aid training. And these are really neat research that we've done that shows that 90% of all the modifications through the EAF cost less than $10,000, and 50% cost less than $1,000. And many, such as flexible working arrangements, cost no money at all and are readily implemented. So the application for workplace modifications can be made by employers, service providers, and employees. For the purpose of our discussion today, we will focus on the employer application process. So first, the employer can submit an online application at our website. Then the JobAccess will assess the application and let the organization know of the outcome. If the application is successful, JobAccess will also advise if the workplace adjustment is required. If a workplace assessment is not required, your organization can purchase the modification or adjustment and have the cost reimbursed by JobAccess. If a workplace assessment is needed, JobAccess will arrange a specialist at no cost whatsoever to any of the parties to assess the workplace changes that may be required. The assessor will visit and look at the workplace, identify any barriers that may exist, and talk to you and to the employee to find solutions to make the workplace more accessible and flexible. Your organization can purchase then the modifications, and the cost can be reimbursed through JobAccess. So some helpful hints and tips when you make the application: check if the employee is eligible. And there will be a little bit more on the next slide. Complete all parts of the application. Provide the required support documentation, and don't purchase any single thing until your application has been approved. But remember, we're here to help. JobAccess advisors will manage the process and answer any inquiries that you may have. And the details of the guidelines can also be found in our website. In order to be eligible for funding to make any workplace modifications and adjustments, there are certain criteria that each employee needs to meet. They need to work at least 8 hours per week. And if they're self-employed, work at least 20 hours per week. And an hourly income at least equivalent to the minimum wage if self-employed. Be in a job that is expected to continue for 13 weeks or more. You need to be an Australian citizen or a permanent resident, and have an ongoing disability that has lasted or will last at least for 2 years, and the disability must limit or restrict or impair your ability to work. Again, our professional advisors are available to assist you with any inquiries regarding eligibility. But apart from physical modifications and adjustments in the workplaces, employers can also access funding support for job interviews a person who is deaf that may require Auslan interpreting sign language, interpreters to be present at the interview. The EAF is available for Auslan Level 2 interpreting for job interviews and related activities such as site visits, completion of tests, and information sessions for people who are deaf or have hearing impairment. There is also awareness training that can be provided through the EAF. And this can include generic disability awareness training, deafness awareness training, and mental health awareness training. The EAF can provide funding for $1,500 per year to employers for each eligible employee to conduct training at the workplace. Training is conducted usually by a reputable organization and delivered by a qualified professional with specialist expertise. The training seeks to increase awareness, reduce stigma, improve attitudes, as well as increase the confidence of employers and co-workers to assist someone that is seeking help. Next is specialist support, which includes funding for specialist service providers by professional expertise in the area of mental health, as well as learning disorders. Here too, the EAF can provide funding of up to $1,500 per employee that is eligible to access specialist service. This support is directed at enabling a specialist to work with the employee and employer to establish and provide practical plans or work-based intervention, aiming to meet the workplace goals identified to be overcome at the workplace. In speaking with our workplace modifications team, they identify the following as common support for people living with autism: disability awareness training, one-on-one support, noise canceling headphones, and funding for specific tools to reduce need for sharing and difficult social interactions. So there are certain things that can be done specifically for autism. Importantly, we know that these efforts work. Since 2006, JobAccess has managed over 56,000 applications for workplace modifications, and each one has made a difference. The feedback we receive from employers show that 98% were still employed 3 months after receiving the funding. 92% indicated that employees were more productive post-implementation. And 97% indicated that the EAF provided the help that it was intended to provide. The role of a coach is to support, encourage, and advise on the best strategies and practices to achieve your goals. This is exactly what the National Disability Recruitment Coordinator, or the NDRC, exists to do. So largest employers that are considering entering into a 12-month partnership and receive personalized one-on-one support to develop good practices strategies. The support includes developing and disseminating job vacancies by working with employers to job carve and identify opportunities that encourage people with disabilities to apply. Working with both employer and disability employment service to help them develop ongoing relationships as a supply of ready and able job candidates with a disability. And reviewing existing recruitment practices to see if there is any inadvertent barrier preventing people with disabilities applying for your roles. We also help employers developing attraction strategies, reasonable adjustment policies, and providing disability awareness training packages. You can also share ideas on how to raise awareness of the benefits of employing people with disabilities across the business. Since 2010, the NDRC has partnered with 320 large organizations to improve their practices and strategies. JobAccess is also delighted to count Canberra's Business Seam Machine as one of our alumni partner organizations who completed a 12-month partnership with the NDRC and demonstrated ongoing and outstanding commitment to disability inclusion. Seam Machines introduced Project Embrace, an initiative to create employment opportunities for neurodiverse candidates in the local community and engage JobAccess as part of the project. According to Seeing Machine, the NDRS input helped modify job advertisements to demonstrate openness and employing people with disabilities, as well as adapting the interview process to ensure accessibility and improvement overall candidate experience. The NDRC also guided Seeing Machines on accessing support to organize workplace adjustments and modifications. They then deliver disability awareness training to more than 50 employees across all departments and management level. Just under a year since the concept inception, Project Embrace was delivering benefits. So far, has employed 18 apprentices with neurodiverse conditions, as well as 6 managers to support the team. Gillian Smith from Seeing Machines had this to say about the project. For us, as an employer, it means working with a dedicated employee who are committed, go above and beyond, and love doing their work. JobAccess vacancy service is free. It's also free of charge, and it disseminates your roles to a network of disability employment service providers, broadening the talent pool of candidates. You also create real opportunities for people who want to be judged on their merit, but may struggle to get that initial fair go in the recruitment process. This service is available to all employers, big and small. And please, if you're an employer out there, consider what current vacancies you may have and get in touch with us. Another great resource is the Employer Toolkit, which is available in our website. The toolkit covers a range of topics, including creating inclusive policies, funding and interviewing job seekers, and making adjustments in the workplace. It is specifically designed for time poor professionals to quickly access practical information. And this is what I get to boast about the great work that my team is doing. Since our launch in July 2006, JobAccess has become a trusted partner in the disability employment space. We've assisted over 384,000 people with disabilities and employers with advice and support. We've managed over 56,000 applications for workplace modifications and adjustments. As I said before, we've partnered with over 320 large employers to build their expertise and disability confidence. Since 2012, we have lodged more than 14,500 complaints and reports of abuse and neglect through the CRRS and the hotline. And all of these numbers have been calculated to the 30th of June 2021. You're also welcome to continue the conversation on disability employment and to share your views on social platforms using the hashtag #EmployTheAbility. You can also follow JobAccess on LinkedIn to stay up to date with the latest industry update, resources, and insights. And that is as much as I wanted to say. I think that is very important to have that conversation going, and I'm sure that there is many questions that you guys want to express. The main thing to take out of this presentation, though, is that you can always call us. You can call us at any single time. We are there to answer your questions. The team is staffed with occupational therapists and psychologists, and they are there to support you. We will do anything to remove barriers to the employment of people with disabilities, from the really small changes to the very large changes. This service is here to remove barriers to the employment of people with disabilities. Thank you, and if you've got any questions, happy to open it up to the floor.
Well, thank you, Daniel. That was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. That was, wow.
And Ori, I need to apologize, obviously, because listening to somebody with a thick accent for so long is also exhausting.
No,
that's what my daughter told me last time that I practiced a presentation in front of her. Said to me, "Papi, It is exhausting to hear you stumble on your own words.
Well, I think we can get a bit more of your voice. We've probably got about 15 minutes to get some questions. So, all right. So what I'll do, you can take down your presentation, sorry, and we can just focus on some questions. And I think people have already been putting them through, so we'll get to those. But by the way, if a question has popped up, please feel free to click on that Q&A pane and put your question in, and we'll do our best between now and about 1:45 to get Daniel to answer your questions. And let's work on that now. So we'll go to this document. Something that actually popped up to me, Daniel. I don't know if this is a comment or just an insight or something that just kind of came to me, but I'd love to, I guess, share it with you. Is the government and clearly yourself and your team at JobAccess are clearly doing just some amazing work, and people in the disability sector obviously very grateful for it. And what I was, as an autistic person who's been in the employment world for a couple of decades and hasn't done great because of, I guess, the way you can be treated. I see a focus on providing tools and resources to help, in this instance, autistic people with disabilities. So employers can reach out and get the tools and resources they need to help an autistic person or a person with a disability in the workplace. But what occurred to me was, what's important to me is that it's not only the employers, but it's the other employees who are not disabled, who are neurotypical in this instance. I want them to learn stuff too. I want them to have to adjust. I want them to have tools that they've got to make changes on. So it's not, if we're, leveling the playing field, it's not just me having to, do all the adjusting or learn how to communicate in a different way. I mean, I guess what's important to me is a happy balance between these fantastic services, but also the idea that we can put time and effort and funding into employers training and encouraging, neurotypical or non-disabled employees to learn a bit about disabilities, to the extent where, Orion is autistic. That's not him trying to be rude. That's how he communicates rather than, I don't care what he is. Does that make sense, Daniel?
It does make perfect sense. And I think that one of the great difficulties that we've had is that we don't have exposure of people with disabilities in the workplace, and that kind of leads you to that path of, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to interact. This is really challenging me. It's something new that I don't know how to deal with. And there is some support in there, obviously. We can do disability awareness training. We can do all sorts of awareness training as well for other employees. That is not for the person with a disability. The person with disability know themselves, and they can get support that is specialist to them. But we can, in fact, go and train whole teams of people on how to deal and how to communicate, how to deal with any type of disability, really. So we do focus.
I'm really happy to hear that. I think that's critical. I'd love if I could just say to the employers watching across the world, do that, please. I'd love it. I'd be so appreciative if you did that. Actually make it compulsory. Your employees have to sit down and actually take the initiative to learn this stuff, because it's people like me. We've spent our whole life trying to learn to be like you guys. Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely, 100%. So we do that twofold. We can tap into the Employment Assistance Fund to provide that training to organizations at large. But we can also, when we partner with large employers, we provide all of that as well. And employers that partner with us will provide with the awareness training that may be required for that specific person with a disability that may be joining the team, or whatever the employer asks us to provide. But also employers that fill the 12-month partnership with us, they become part of our alumni.
Yeah.
And we have ongoing training sessions with them to increase that confidence, because that's what it is that confidence of be able to just deal with what technically is just the normal human experience of diversity.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I hope I don't mind, but I'd love to get lots of questions to you. So do you mind kind of, I guess, giving us little bullet point answers so we can get to lots of questions?
Absolutely.
If that's okay. So let's get through. So from Jonathan, what would you say your top 3 workplace adjustments that you've had the most impact in helping people with autism are? Or at least how can we get our hands on those?
Awareness training. I put on a slide on it a little bit early on, noise cancelling headphones, sometimes even tablets to just instruct things and be aware of behavior. So they are the kind of things that we usually do. And again, awareness training for other employees that are interacting with a person with a disability.
I think this might be the awareness training might answer this question, but another question is, how would you encourage companies who are new to hiring, I guess, neurodivergent people to create a culture of acceptance in their environment? Well, I think we've kind of just talked about that, haven't we?
Yeah, and look, I truly believe that the problem that we face is that people with disabilities are not represented within the workplaces. It has been something that has been put behind. And look, if I can waffle a little bit, I usually have a tendency to do it. So if I start waffling, please tell me to stop. I live in an area in Sydney called Erskineville. And it was famous because, you know, the Priscilla Queen of the Desert bus left Erskineville. And it was famous for being an area where there were a lot of gay and lesbian community, this 20 years ago. I moved in there because I thought it would be interesting to be in a place that is so accepting and is diverse. 20 years down the track, there is no gay and lesbian pubs anymore. They're just pubs because the exposure to the gay and lesbian community just meant that they didn't need to segregate any longer. So I truly believe that that exposure is what we're missing, that exposure to people with disabilities, and just to normalize the fact that, in fact, we're all different.
100%. And I appreciate that insight too. Thank you for sharing that experience. Now, what happens if under the Disability Act, the accommodations agreed to are then changed by the employer, which means the autistic person is then unable to maintain function in that workplace, and as a result, they leave that employer because, let's say, they melt down daily or they have some autistic experiences, oversensitized. What happens then? I guess they're kind of rescinding what they've given.
Look, I'm not a lawyer. I'm a psychologist by profession, so I can't provide legal advice in these kind of things. But I think that once employers have made a modification, there will have to be a reason why they are going back into that modification. Because obviously, if it's been working, why change it? Why not move forward? So, you know, in those type of occasions, I'll be advising somebody to go to Fair Work Australia and have a conversation about whether that is something that the employer can do or not. I'm an employer myself. We've got about 45% of people with disabilities within the service, providing the service of JobAccess. And, you know, I know that once you have the experience of working with a person with a disability, you don't go back. You just want more.
And I think, like you said, it's a commitment, it's an investment, it's a long-term thing. It'll never end. So I've got a question here from Jenny. How can people in rural areas, so I guess, you know, areas outside of the urban areas, how can they begin a conversation with an employer organisation about employing a person who's autistic?
And, you know, even in rural areas, you've got disability employment services. I think that they are a good place to tap into local businesses as well. They will have relationships with your local employers. They will be able to, you know, perhaps market that person to a specific employer that is looking to employ somebody with a disability. But I think that will be the first point to go if you are living in a regional area. Get in contact with your local disability employment service. They will be able to support you. That is their sole funding model. They are funded just to support people with disabilities to find employment and connect them with employers.
Okay. Now, I'm not sure if this is beyond your scope, but can self-employed people with an ABN number, can they apply for the employer support with JobAccess?
The Employment Assistance Fund? Yes, they can. And I did put on a slide before. They just need to show that they earn more than 20 hours per week at a minimum wage.
Okay.
And then they can apply for that funding.
And now from Anthony asking about how can JobAccess assist students who are currently undertaking internships and work placements and that type of stuff. I guess, you know, they're not there. You were talking about hours and things, but this is probably pretty important too, right? Because if you have an internship, it makes or breaks your career.
Absolutely. And again, the guidelines will be quite similar. So as long as you are working more than 8 hours to the minimum wage, you can tap into the funding. So for example, at the moment, we are supporting the ABC. They've got a couple of apprenticeships that will last for more than a year. And because of that, we're able to tap into the Employment Assistance Fund to support them.
Okay. Last one, and this is from Mary asking about JobAccess. I mean, you're working very hard. Can your team really help people who are neurodiverse, so neurodivergent people, autistic people, find suitable work based on their, for example, if they've gone to higher education, their uni degree, when there's other barriers with them? For example, they might have issues with Centrelink and with the New Starts and with the idea of finding their niche, finding their job, and they might feel like in some organizations might not be committed to helping them. So, I mean, from an autistic point of view, this is a very specific question because you work in the disability sector broadly. But for those that go on and get higher education, how are you able to, to help these particular autistic people find the employment they want in this world we live in?
So one of the misconceptions about JobAccess is that we don't find jobs for people with disabilities. What we do, we remove the barriers once that job is attained. So we go into the workplace, whether you are about to start work, whether you've been working and acquire a disability, we're there to go. If you're about to start a job, we will go to your workplace. We will find all the modifications that need to be made. We will implement those modifications so the person with a disability can just go and work and perform at their best. The phase of looking for employment, that is what disability employment services are funded for. So once they found employment, then we will come in and we will provide all the awareness training, we will provide all the modifications required that may be needed, whether it is modifying a tractor or providing you with a watch that will remind you the time that you need to start doing something.
Hey, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thank you.